Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Hi, David. Camera not working. And hi, Rosemary. Thank you so much
There
for
we go.
joining me again. You are the two culprits that joined me last time, so thank you so much.
Yeah.
David, I see you have submitted your assessment, although I haven't looked at it. And Rosemary, you've sent me a draft and all looks on the way to perfection. So I think you're pretty much on track. And how are you feeling? David, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Yeah, just reading the quality. The part 4, is it?
Yes.
Part 4 of that.
It's actually module 3.
Turn that up.
Module 3. And
Module 3, yeah.
Module 3. And is it making sense to you?
Oh, yeah. As I said, I've been involved with projects for 20 or 30 years. Never got really involved with this part of it, but from the outside saw what was going on.
Right.
So it's going to be a little bit helpful for me.
From a different perspective.
Yeah. Yes, finding out where it all comes from, where it all goes, except sitting on the outside watching it all go round.
Right. Very interesting. And Rosemary, how are you going with module 3?
Yeah, not too bad. With that quality control one, is that how we're gonna gauge how well the website is going to go, or are we quality controllers throughout the project?
Throughout the project. So the quality, that flow chart that you put together, this is trying to establish what are the quality checkpoints throughout the project. So obviously our outcome is to get that website up and running, but it's not just, just that aspect of it. It has to be from start to end. And you have to put checkpoints throughout the way to make sure that quality is of utmost importance and of the highest standard. So it is throughout the entire process. Make sense?
Not really.
No.
Is what I had in that flow chart right, aside from I changed it to creating a non-user friendly website?
You put that under risk, and I said change that because that's not a risk.
Yeah, so I changed it to a non-user friendly website.
Yeah, so that's okay. If you want to perhaps provide 1 or 2 other examples of risk, that'd be great. And then, the basic format of what you did there was perfect. David, thinking about it, I think what you sent me as the draft the first time round, did it include the quality section? Because we hadn't covered quality yet, because I haven't looked at your final submission.
No, I haven't included the quality control dot point 4 yet, because we were told last time only to go up to dot point 3.
Right. Okay.
So the draft that I sent you, you asked me to expand a bit on the project objectives.
Yeah.
and check my spelling, and I've done that and submitted it as that.
Okay, so this is where we actually have to change things a bit, because if you submitted it and you haven't completed the last section, then it's going to go forward as like your final submission. So it's not a big drama at all. All I need to do is do a minor change in Blackboard, and I will just ignore the submission. And then you can, once we've checked it through, we can just resubmit again. I thought you had actually pressed forward and completed everything and then submitted it. I didn't realize you were asking me to check your draft. So in future, don't submit drafts like on Blackboard. Just email them through to me.
Oh, okay.
Because the
Well,
system
that's
sees it as like a final
different.
submission.
It's a little bit different to the effective meetings that I'm doing on another part. They want it submitted on Blackboard.
Okay, all right.
So I have to go and complete the quality control section 4,
Please.
and then it's complete.
Then that's complete. Then the final assignment needs to be submitted this Sunday, the 27th of March.
Oh, okay.
And then you'll be done. But I'll just amend the Blackboard submission. It's really a minor adjustment. And then we can move forward. Because, you know, drafts are meant to have been in, etc., and we haven't really covered quality, if you would like to get me something, let's say, I'm thinking of the calendar and long weekend. If you could get me something by Thursday night, then before, like basically by Friday, I can just get back to you and then you can do your final submission by Sunday.
Okay, thank you very much,
All
Guy.
right. So if you just in the next 24 hours get something together from that quality point of view and email it to me, I will just change Blackboard and we will move forward. All right.
Email it to you direct.
Email me to my email address. Yeah.
Yeah, the draft. Yeah.
Yes.
And once the draft and you get back to me, then do I put it on Blackboard?
Yes. So then you will see, you know, your first submission will just be ignored and you will be able to resubmit under assessment.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure. So really what I would just like to go through today is to just firstly make you aware of the timeframes we're working forward with. So as I said, this assessment 1 is due on Sunday. It's a bit of a tricky weekend as it's the long weekend. So if you are able to get your work done before the weekend, you'll feel a lot better. But if it's not possible, work towards your own capabilities. The next assessment actually creeps up on us a little bit because it's actually due on the 10th of April. Now, our next meeting will only occur in about 2 weeks' time. So I'm not going to be able to give you all that much information on the assessment in that meeting. And therefore, I wanted to introduce it to you today, although we haven't even submitted our first assessment. So I just wanted to very briefly give you a bit of a synopsis of what the second assessment's all about, so that once you've submitted assessment 1, you can get going on assessment 2, because you won't have a very long time frame in which to do it. The other thing, let me just actually share my screen. The other thing I wanted to do is to just go through a few of the main parts of this quality module. It's quite a meaty module, as you've probably discovered if you've been through it. And just to try and give you a bit of a simplified version of what are we talking about with quality and what are the main things that we need to consider when we're managing quality and quality control. So just let me know if you can see my screen now. Got some funny Zoom message there. Let's get rid of that. Can you see what's going on my computer? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, the Module 3 learning resources.
Module 3, that's it. Okay, so I'll just give you a bit of a rundown and then perhaps let me finish what I've got to say. If you've got any questions, perhaps jot them down and I will answer questions afterwards. And then once we're clear on that, I'll just briefly introduce you into the second assessment. So project quality, what is this whole big beast we are dealing with now? So if you recall, we had the project management triangle. And in the center of that triangle is a variable called quality. If we play with any of those variables around our project management triangle, such as our scope, like if we haven't identified exactly what our project's all about, time, for example, if suddenly we've got much shorter deadline to adhere to, quality might suffer. And at the same time, we've got our budget. So it all revolves around money, unfortunately. But if budget is cut, quality is going to suffer. So the variable we're talking about today is quality. And how are we going to try and manage quality and make sure that it's of utmost a high degree of acceptability and satisfy our customer at the end of the day? So in Australia and New Zealand, there are a number of basic quality standards that are around. You can read up on those. The other thing we need to think about is our quality management system. So we need to ask a few questions. So what is to be managed and how do we control this? If we are going to sample our quality or our work thus far, how are we going to go about doing this? Is it something that's easily testable? Do we have to stop our processes to do this? How are we going to actually test and assess? Are we on target with our quality? What are we going to compare this to? So what criteria are we going to use to compare? So you've got to have like a benchmark, and you've got to be able to say, okay, this is the basic quality we need to try and achieve. Then you can see, are we adhering to it? Are we reaching it? Or do we need to monitor things that we're doing to try and get a higher quality level? And then if there are any deviations from our quality, what is acceptable and what is not? So this diagram here is a great way of visually depicting how we need to manage quality. So there's continual improvement of quality. So if you see on the one side here, we've got clients and stakeholders who get a client brief. Before you start planning, before you know what you're doing, you have to get the brief from the client and understand what their needs are. That goes into the mix, or their input, and then an outcome happens on the other side. And hopefully, there's a bit of a block from all your cameras at the moment. I'm just minimizing here. Hopefully, you've got stakeholders who are very satisfied. So stakeholders include anyone who has an interest in the outcome of the project. Might be clients, might be your team members, might be anybody who is involved in the outcome of the project. Not necessarily only the project team, but anyone who has an interest in what occurs for the project. So this gray circle over here, what takes place? We've got management's responsibility at the top there. They put resources in and manage the whole process, whether it's financial, physical, people, materials. The project gets executed, so that's the doing part of the project. Then as we're going along, we need to monitor, we need to measure, we need to analyze, and we need to improve. If this is adhered to, then hopefully we get satisfaction from all stakeholders involved in the project. So it's a very nice graphical picture, but how do we actually go about doing this? So firstly, we need a quality management plan. And this needs to develop before the production stage. So when we are planning, we need to set up what's called a quality management plan. Why before the production stage? Because it's too late in the doing part of the project to start worrying about how we're going to go forward with this. So it's got different sections, which you'll just read. It's just pretty much standard protocol. You've got an introduction, you've got what processes you're doing. You also might have existing schedules in an organization and quality management procedures already in place. There might be a quality management manual that gets introduced to the project that talks about different checklists. And I'm assuming, David, having worked with many projects, you've probably come across some sort of quality management manual or schedules or safety features that have to be managed throughout the process. So how do we actually put our tools into practice for quality? What can we do to try and inspect and analyze our data? So one technique we can do is called brainstorming. Have you heard of brainstorming?
Yeah.
Yeah. So brainstorming is just getting a lot of different alternatives together. And once you've got all of these ideas, you can try and make sense of them, see what's realistic, and perhaps even take bits and pieces from different ideas and put them together in a good, solid alternative. Number two is a cause and effect diagram. So just trying to figure out what are the causes of things in projects in terms of quality and what's the effect? So if this scenario were to occur, what would actually be the effect of it? How would it perhaps damage our project? What do we have to do in that instance? A bit of risk management comes into play here as well. The third tool that we have to establish quality management is called a Pareto chart. So you might have heard of the 80-20 principle, which is that 80% of your problems come from 20% of the actual features. The same way you've heard people say, like the 80-20 principle is like 80% of your sales come from 20% of your customers. It's the same thing. It says that most of your issues come from, you know, a very small pool of issues. So these things need to be managed. And there's also tolerances. That's number 4. So tolerances of what are the allowable deviations from what we are trying to achieve. So just going through them, just naming them all up. So we've got tools at our disposal to try and establish quality management. Brainstorming is one, cause and effect diagrams, Pareto charts, and tolerances. So those are suggested ways in which we can perhaps get over all of our hurdles in terms of quality. So Rosemary, you were talking about this next flow chart over here, which I've now lost. It seemed to hop in the wrong direction. Give me 1 second. There we go. So this diagram, David, is what we're talking about for the assessment, and this is what you can use in your template in the quality area. So this is a pathway that takes place in project management, and these are basic things that need to be thought about and identified in order to have a quality end result. So the first thing is identify the area or the product or service being produced and lay out the scope of our quality plan. Review any risks in the process, identify the cause of those problems, and set up boundaries as to what's okay, what's not okay, what we can take on, what perhaps we need to give to a third party to take the risk on. Then think about our quality checks. So whose responsibilities it is to monitor, to control. Check out standard methods of doing this. Look at, okay, if we're going to take samples of how well we are doing in this process, what is our sample size? So what would be a good enough sample size to assume that it is relevant to the whole population that we're checking? This green box over here is looking at recording tools and monitoring tools. Assign overall accountability for monitoring. If you don't assign responsibility to particular individuals, you're going to get very stuck at the end of the day because everyone's going to believe it was someone else's job. So everybody needs to have, you know, their responsibility, their outlined tasks that they need to put forward and they need to achieve. And then review frequency and update quality plans as necessary. So bottom line through this whole process is you forever need to monitor, you need to check, you need to control, and you need to make sure that you are on top of any deviations from what you have set forward. So you need to make sure that everything is chugging along as it's meant to, and then take action where things go a little bit far off the course, because then you might have quite a large number of issues. Any questions thus far?
No.
No? Okay. So just looking at, no, that's assessment 2. Just looking at our assessment 1, and this is when it starts to play with me over here, my Zoom stuff, and it won't let me into other areas. I'll open it for you here. So on that template for assessment 1, you can now go forward and look at quality if you haven't done so already. Look at that template over there. Down my screen. And that big flow chart that I just put up on the screen you can use
Yeah.
over here, but make it specific to the project. So you add in little bits and pieces that make it specific to give me an idea that you understand the concept, that you're not just cutting and pasting.
I understand,
With
yes.
with the last 3 ones though, would you leave those as is? So ensure monitoring and recording, assign overall accountability, and set review frequency. Would you leave those the same?
You could leave it the same, but perhaps you might just tailor it a little bit and maybe say it's whoever's job, like actually mention the person's name in your work. So let me get to it over here.
So would you put it as, say, the web designer or the project manager, or?
So you're talking about like these boxes over here.
Those last 3 ones, yeah.
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 Yeah. So look, in this instance, we're not elaborating too much for assessment 1. It gets a lot more, deep in terms of all of the specific roles and responsibilities in assessment 2, but you might just provide a bit of an example there. So yes, like, the web designer will check that, quality features are in place. And the project manager will always double check that everybody's roles are working according to plan. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So I think you seem to be on top of assessment 1. I think you've got the understanding of it. Are you happy for me to just give you a quick glance at assessment 2?
I still don't understand what we're supposed to do for the quality control bit. Like, how are we supposed to know what's going on for quality throughout the whole thing? Is that just having meetings, or?
So there definitely has to be meetings. And listen back after we end as well to all the things that I spoke about in terms of quality. So I've highlighted a few things in terms of quality of what needs to take place. So I said there needs to be like a referral back to set standards in Australia and New Zealand about what quality standards need to take place. We need to ask certain questions about how we're going to sample, what is our benchmark, how we're going to compare. Then we need to have a quality management plan. So we need to have a plan in place.
I think that starts on about page 45 of the manual, if you like, quality management plan. You
Right.
take some dot points out of that, Rosemary, as long, and then identify your quality management approach, quality management requirements and standards, as Kelly said, mention Australian, New Zealand standards and insurances, and probably just that sort of thing. Kelly, you're thinking just
yes,
an overall breakdown, and then you read it and understand it, even if you take some words out of those different headings.
Yes, absolutely. And also the last thing I spoke about for module 3 was those project management methods and tools. So I spoke about brainstorming, cause and effect diagrams, Pareto charts, tolerances. If you want to just look those up in a little more detail, those are tools that you can use to try and ascertain, are we on track with our quality?
So it's okay just to dot point them then? We don't have to do much detail?
No, dot points, because we have provided you with a template, we are totally steering you to only put relevant, proper fact and relevant information. So we're not asking you to write essays at all. If you have pertinent facts, then you can just put them in dot form. That's great.
I'm probably just overthinking it then.
Maybe you need to simplify your thought process, especially for assessment 1, because it's just sort of your plan for the whole thing, and it's just to try get a bit of a big picture of what we're trying to achieve in the project.
Yeah. All right.
For assessment 2, I'm not going to go into it in too much detail because we haven't actually covered the theory of it. I just wanted to sort of highlight a few main things that you will be doing in this assessment. There's quite a lot to read as to what new information has come about, and I will leave you to that, of all the different participants in the project team and what their characters are like. So you can see all of that over there. Not going to go into it now. And then your template to answer this one is, we're on assignment 1. Let me get to the template. It seems to disappear on me. I'll just go back into it. Your template for this one, there's a lot more work that is required for assessment 2, and it's all about project scheduling. So when you do start module 4, that's all about scheduling, and that's where you're going to get all this information. So module 1, 2, and 3 is applicable to assessment 1, but then you do need to complete module 4 in order to do your second one. Okay, now that's the wrong attachment template. There we go.
That's the template there, yeah.
All right, so this is our scope management plan. So this is a little bit more detail of what we need to do. So firstly, we've got our project scope statement, and what are we asking for there is, what is our whole project about? Remember, we always need to talk about what's in scope and what's out of scope. So what are the deliverables that we need to accomplish? And you can see there's even a bullet point ready for you there, which means you don't actually have to write in full sentences if you don't want. You can do point form. So roles and responsibilities. If you read the brief for assessment 2, there's loads of information about each character in our project. So you need to write their name, what their role is, and what their responsibilities are. If we don't have this in place, we're going to have a lot of events going off in the wrong direction, or people not taking responsibility for their actions. So that's roles and responsibilities. Work breakdown structure. This is a pet favorite of mine. At this point, you won't know what I'm talking about because it all occurs in module 4. But what a work breakdown structure is a big graphical diagram trying to take this big, huge project and break it up into bite-sized pieces. So it's to try and put in a graphical way what is going to take place in this project and how we're going to go about doing it. So there's not heaps of information. It's mainly like headings of tasks that have to take place. And once you've got this map outlined, it will lead us into a later area, which is called a Gantt chart. But I will just show you, and I would love to move this out of my way if I could, because it's sort of blocking me. I think I can't even get into it for some reason. So I've got your Zoom meeting thing there, and that is the Gantt chart. That's the next one I wanted to show you. I can't get into it. Let's perhaps do it over here. And I'll just visually show you what a work breakdown structure is so that you just get a bit of a sense of what we are talking about. So a work breakdown structure looks something like this, often very colorful and pretty. And there it is.
Are you still sharing your screen?
Am I not sharing? Can you not see this?
No.
No, I can't see it.
I can't see it anymore. What happened? Okay, let's share. Tell me now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so there it is. So we're going to click on it just to zoom it up a bit. So this is a work breakdown structure. Don't worry about the subject of the matter we're talking about here, but it's just breaking up. In this instance, it says a house ready for first viewing, obviously to sell. And it's talking about, in line 1, the main elements that need to be considered for this whole project. Line 2 then elaborates and goes on to further detailed information. So you can see this first one says estate agent arrangements made. And the first thing related to that is take the house off the market, retake photos, move viewings till after done. Okay, don't worry too much about what specifically we're talking about, because this is just a random project, and I wanted to just give you a sense of what are we talking about with a work breakdown structure.
With the
What were you going to say?
with the bedroom one, it had ones going off in different directions. Does that really matter?
If it's related, like you might even narrow one task down even further. So you might actually have, like with the bedroom one, layer 1 is whatever it is about the estate agent. Then you get one layer below that, and below that layer, you've got like a whole side story going on. It doesn't matter. It just depends on the nature of your project.
Okay.
So if you look at attachment for the assessment, this is what you're being asked for here, a work breakdown structure particular to this project. So you're looking at high level deliverable is the main task you're looking at. The sub-level deliverable are the lower layers. So if you've got, in that instance, I spoke about the estate agent, that would be the main thing for number 1. And then drilling down lower, you're going to have all these 1.1, 1.2, 1.3.
Oh, okay.
So it's much easier graphically to sort of look at what I've shown you. It doesn't look so easy to understand in this template.
There's more to the sheet than just the 1.3s. It goes down, doesn't it? So
Yeah,
you
so
got
then you've got
2.1 and then it goes
yeah, so then number
further
2
down.
is your next, you know, sort of top layer, your high level deliverable, and then broken
The gardening.
down to 2.1.
It'll be the gardening and then the storage.
Yeah. So I don't have that example in front of me anymore, but you have to make it relevant to our particular project. And if you don't have sufficient space, you're welcome to slot in more space as required. So it's just to give you a starting block of what to do. So 4 is project schedule, which is also all part of module 4. And I had a Gantt chart. So a Gantt chart was created by a gentleman by the name of Henry Gantt, I think in the 1900s. And it's just to put visual presentation to the timing of a project. So you're just trying to work out in terms of days, weeks, you know, some projects land up going over months and years, just depends. What is going to occur on which dates?
So work breakdown structure doesn't generally mean a set of numbering. It's just identifying the tasks.
Yeah, identifying the main tasks and what needs to take place to achieve your final end result, your final project deliverable.
Where are they on?
So the next one is your Gantt chart, and that's an example of a Gantt chart. So it goes on the horizontal axis, you've got all dates. It might be broken up into actual days of the week. It might be week 1, week 2, week 3. It might be months. It just depends on the exact project. So you need to create the date line going horizontally across. And then down are your tasks. Now that's where the work breakdown structure assists you to create your Gantt chart. Because all the tasks you came up with in your work breakdown structure is what you would put in here for your Gantt chart. So 1, 2, 3, all of those would be your tasks that you would put in for your project. And these little diamond shapes that you see over here are milestones. Now, a milestone is when you achieve a certain accomplishment in a project. Obviously, the end is your main accomplishment. But in this case, they've put it like really at the start here. Often you will see a few diamond shapes along the way because it shows the end of a stage, the end of some sort of accomplishment along the way. So in your assessment, we've got, and you can still see my screen, right? Oh, that's assessment 1. That doesn't help us now. So assessment 2. So here's a Gantt chart, put it into days, and your activities would come from your work breakdown structure above. So you put it down here, and you would color in the actual blocks to show which days it's going to take place. And then you could put in a little symbol, which is diamonds, to show the end of a certain stage or achievement. Milestones are monitoring tools. So if you get to that stage and you haven't achieved that milestone, you then have the alarm bells ringing saying, okay, where are we going wrong? Why have we not achieved our first milestone? Too late if you wait till the end. So these are great monitoring tools, along the way. And here you have quality assurance again. So this, all we've spoken about in quality for module 3, this is where you elaborate more on quality. So your assessment 1 is very brief in terms of quality. Here you've got a little bit more of space and appreciation of what we are going to do in terms of quality. How are you both feeling?
So do you want this Gantt chart is done in the Word document, or can it be done in Excel, or is it?
Look, if it doesn't work for you in this particular template, you can upload another document. As far as I know, in terms of when you're going to upload to Blackboard, you might have to sort of put it into a PDF or something. You've just got to check what format will be acceptable when you upload your documents. But you can, for sure, attach extra sheets to it. It will just come through as a separate document, but when I open your submission, I will see everything there.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. Rosemary, any questions?
No.
No?
Not as of yet.
Okay, I sure do hope that we are recording our whole little lesson today. That would be very sad if we are.
It says recording.
Oh, yay, it says recording. Okay. All right, so where we're leaving off is, David, I'm going to just change in Blackboard that submission, then I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to wait for you to send me through your quality section as well. And if you do so by tomorrow. And then both of you need to submit on the portal, and whoever else is listening needs to submit on the portal by Sunday. That's your deadline for assessment 1. Then once you've done that, next week you can start looking at module 4, and you will start learning about work breakdown structures and Gantt charts. And then you can start getting ahead with assessment 2, which is due on the 10th of April. Happy? Look a bit stressed.
No, it's fine.
You're all right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're nearly there for assessment 1. So if you just
Yeah.
the last question, that's one milestone you can actually put to bed. Baby steps.
But yeah.
You'll get there. Both of you are totally switched on. You're doing your work. You're submitting everything you're meant to submit. So I don't have any concerns. All right. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Kelly. I'll do that stuff and send it up.
Fantastic. I'm just going to do that adjustment in Blackboard.
Thank you.
Have a great day and weekend.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.